The penthouse gleamed under the Manhattan skyline, its glass walls reflecting a city that never slept. Victor Salazar, a tech mogul worth billions, stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows sipping bourbon, his eyes tracing the glittering lights below. Success had built this empire, but tonight his heart was heavy. His 8-year-old son Mateo lay in his room, recovering from a mysterious illness that no doctor could fully explain. Victor's girlfriend Elena, a radiant woman with a smile that disarmed everyone, had been his rock through it all. Yet as the city buzzed below, a strange unease gnawed at him, a whisper of doubt he couldn't shake. The elevator chimed, and Victor turned, expecting Elena with the takeout she'd promised for their quiet night in. Instead, a boy no older than 10 stumbled out, his clothes tattered, his face smudged with dirt. Victor froze. "Who are you? How did you get up here?" he demanded, his voice sharp. The boy, trembling but defiant, pointed a bony finger. "Tu novia puso algo en la comida de tu hijo," he shouted, his Spanish accent thick, his eyes wide with urgency. "Your girlfriend put something in your son's food." Victor's blood ran cold. The words hit like a sledgehammer, absurd yet chilling. He laughed, a hollow sound. "Kid, you're out of your mind. Get out before I call security." But the boy, whose name was Luis, didn't budge. His dark eyes burned with a truth Victor couldn't ignore. "I saw her," Luis insisted, his voice cracking. "In the alley behind the fancy restaurant. She was with a man, and they were talking about making Mateo sick. I heard her say it would keep you distracted. I swear, senor, I'm not lying." Victor's mind reeled. Elena? The woman who'd spent nights reading to Mateo, who'd planned his birthday party with meticulous care. It was impossible. Yet the boy's raw sincerity, his trembling hands, planted a seed of doubt. "Why should I believe you?" Victor asked, his voice softer now, searching the boy's face for answers. Luis's story spilled out. He was homeless, surviving on scraps, often scavenging near the upscale restaurants Victor frequented. He'd seen Elena slip a vial of something into a dish meant for Mateo's special diet, a dish she'd insisted on preparing herself. Victor's stomach churned. He wanted to dismiss it as a child's wild imagination, but Mateo's unexplained fevers, his lethargy, the way Elena always hovered over his meals. It all clicked into place like a puzzle he'd been too blind to solve. "Stay here," Victor ordered, his voice tight as he grabbed his phone and called his private doctor. Test Mateo's blood now for anything unusual. Hours later, as the city's lights dimmed with the approaching dawn, the doctor's call confirmed the unthinkable. Traces of a rare toxin in Mateo's system, subtle enough to evade routine tests but dangerous over time. Victor's world tilted. Elena, who'd just returned with a bag of gourmet takeout, stood frozen in the kitchen, her smile faltering as she saw Luis. "Who's this?" she asked, her voice too bright. Victor's gaze hardened. "Why don't you tell me, Elena?" he said, holding up the doctor's report. Her face drained of color, and in that moment Victor knew. She stammered, tried to explain, but the truth was clear. She'd been poisoning Mateo slowly, to keep Victor dependent on her, to secure her place in his life and his fortune. The betrayal cut deeper than any knife. Security escorted Elena out, her protests echoing down the hall. Victor sank onto the couch, his head in his hands, the weight of his blindness crushing him. Mateo, his only child, had nearly paid the ultimate price for his trust. But then he looked at Luis, still standing there, small and ragged but fierce with courage. "Why did you do it?" Victor asked, his voice raw. "You don't know me. You could have stayed quiet. Why risk it?" Luis shrugged, his eyes dropping to the floor. "Because no one helped my mom when she was sick. She died because no one cared. I didn't want that for your kid." The words hit Victor like a wave, washing away the numbness. This boy who had nothing, no home, no family, had risked everything to save a stranger's son. Victor's wealth, his power, meant nothing in the face of that kind of selflessness. He saw Luis not as a street kid, but as a mirror of what humanity could be. Raw, flawed, but fiercely good. "You're coming with me," Victor said, standing. "You're not going back to the streets." Luis blinked, confused, but Victor was already moving, his mind racing with purpose. The next morning, Victor sat by Mateo's bedside, watching his son's color return as the doctors flushed the toxin from his system. Luis, cleaned up and wearing Mateo's spare pajamas, hovered nearby, shy but curious. Victor had already called his lawyer, setting up a trust for Luis, school, a home, a future. But it wasn't enough. The boy's courage had sparked something deeper in Victor. A realization that his billions had built walls, not bridges. He'd spent years chasing success, blind to the people like Luis who lived in the shadows of his world. Over the next weeks, Victor transformed. He funded a citywide initiative for homeless youth, naming it Luis's Light in honor of the boy who'd saved his son. He visited shelters, met kids with stories that broke his heart, and realized kindness wasn't a transaction. It was a lifeline. One evening, as Victor, Mateo, and Luis sat together eating pizza in the penthouse, Mateo laughed for the first time in months. Luis, still adjusting to this new life, grinned shyly. Victor watched them, his heart full. "You know," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "you didn't just save Mateo, Luis, you saved me, too." The emotional climax came on a crisp autumn day when Victor opened the first Luis's Light shelter. Hundreds gathered, kids, families, volunteers. Luis, now enrolled in school, stood beside Victor, holding Mateo's hand. Victor took the microphone, his voice steady but laced with feeling. "I thought wealth defined me," he said, "but a boy with nothing showed me what it means to be rich. Kindness, courage, selflessness. Those are the currencies that matter." The crowd erupted, but Victor's eyes were on Luis, whose shy smile lit up the room. In that moment, Victor knew. One act of compassion had rippled outward, touching lives he'd never imagined. As the sun set over the city, Victor stood with Luis and Mateo, watching kids stream into the shelter, their faces bright with hope. The skyline still glittered, but it was no longer just a symbol of his success. It was a reminder of the humanity beneath it. The people who, like Luis, carried light in their hearts despite the darkness. The world wasn't perfect, but it was better because of one boy's courage, one father's awakening, and one simple truth: kindness could change everything. The story ended, but its message lingered. No matter how small you feel, your actions can spark a revolution of the heart. Victor, once frozen by betrayal, was now warmed by hope, and he vowed to live every day proving that wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in the lives you lift up. And somewhere, in the heart of every reader, a spark flickered, a call to be a little braver, a little kinder, and to believe that even the smallest act can light up the world.